Lloyd Productions present Silly Bob and the Loss of Memories, featuring Silly Bob, Lord Creosote the Pieman, Super Squirrel, Floyd the narrator, and Hank Stinkton. Bit part. It's true, there are no memories on the moon, only moon dust. And the more time you spend there, the less you can remember. That is why Silly Bob cannot remember what to do next, especially every word he speaks, as it invariably trips out of the mind. I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing next. I've paced up and down 22 times. Every word I could say seemed to slip down into my socks. And maybe that's why Einstein never wore any. Maybe. The citizens of the moon are not renowned for their consciousness at all, and spend at least 6 hours a day in an unconscious state, one of their own choosing, but not in America. Unfortunately, the only cure for this lack of memory is to leave the moon, or wear a plaster on their big toe. This began when it was all discovered that the massive animal, Bigfoot, is said to have originated here, discovered by Hank Stinkton, the tramp. And people who have big feet assuredly have small minds. Mathematics teachers were banished from the moon thousands of years ago, as it caused the moon's orbit to change farther away from the Earth. And food samples began to dwindle, and so they made a deal with the Earth people to bring more carrots, meat, and vegetables in exchange for arithmetics teachers, as only rhythms and rhymes are accepted here and not credit in card form, only man in the moon notes. So Silly Bob and Floyd decided to build a cheese factory, or was it to write rhymes? They couldn't remember. To build a factory on the moon would cost a lot of money, and Floyd is way too tight to go into his funds, especially on a factory. Silly Bob decides to teach memory retention by inventing rhymes. Silly Bob grabbed a crate, stood on it, and immediately forgot what he was going to say next. He even forgot the word supposed, and found that it was very helpful in determining what to do next. So he invented a little rhyme. Supposed I was to forget how to remember, supposing I didn't forget, then I'd stand on my feet all day long, like paddling on the beach. Suppose I was to remember what I was supposed to forget, then I might suddenly advance my learning and be clever like a Soviet. Like a Soviet? That's not on. And that is why Russians haven't landed on the moon to this day. They're too damn smart. Suppose I was composing a poem. I made it so intrinsically long that there wouldn't be any room for my head or other heads to belong. And then we might all lose our minds. I don't mind if you don't, and you don't mind if I do. And all of this cleverness here invariably fills our heads with glue. And that won't do either. So Silly Bob soon decided to build a cheese factory. I need to build a factory, and really rather quick, so I can manufacture cheese for those brainless twits. And what is a twit? A twit is not a twoo, and twoos tend to get further in this world, because three's company, two's a crowd. If there was a crowd of people standing in the middle of the moon, they'd each have 2 pairs of feet to stand on the moon, and that would make man smarter than woman, and that wouldn't do either. There are no trees on the moon, not a single one has grown, or even been planted there, and no grass has ever been mown. So how can you build a factory here? Whatever could you make? If you made anything here at all, surely not. It would be a financial disaster. There is no cheese on the moon. I reiterate, only the odour of unclean feet. There are plenty of keys on the moon, but there are no doors. That is why people here are so very poor. There are plenty of locks on the moon, but not gold locks, as they hadn't invented spaceships in those days. Super Squirrel came up with a little bit of a verse. Super Squirrel met a pieman going through the square. They said to Super Squirrel, pointing to his goods, "What do you want in there?" And Super Squirrel said to the pieman, "I'd certainly like to fly, man, but never found the right potion. Have you got anything in your kiosk resembling flying lotion?" The pieman tended to disagree, and immediately Super Squirrel began and said, "I won't waste my time here, so..." Away the pieman ran, and the squirrel, feeling slightly miffed, decided to protest and called in the flea police, who lived beneath his vest. They said to him, "We'll catch the pieman in a little jiffy," and proudly brought out a lemon van. It really was rather spiffy. They chased the pieman over hills and craters far away, until they find that he'd made his pies from the meat of a mathematician's brains. Of which he swore his innocence, but they knew he couldn't be trusted, and so he was promptly arrested. So if you want to retrieve your long-lost memories, never go to the moon, or your brains could be seized. You silly Bob. You silly, silly, silly Bob. 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 You silly Bob.